This is an iHeart podcast.
Where these sleeper cells may be is in plain sight. Everyone's scrambling because certain amounts of people could come in here and get in here really relatively easy. The Biden administration, instead of putting them into DHS housing, they were allowed passage into the United States, can just disappear. They are working off the books. They can get a fake ID. They can even get weapons with that fake ID in certain states.
You're listening to the 47 Morning Update with Ben Ferguson.
Good Thursday morning. Nice to have you with us on the 47 Morning Update, and we've got two very big stories for you. First up, a massive cover-up of Joe Biden's cognitive decline now includes apparently his own doctor who is pleading the fifth. So what happens next? We'll have that story for you in a moment. Also, new threats against Donald Trump's life, this time coming directly out of Iran. And the second part of that story is how many sleeper cells could be active in the United States of America from Iran as we speak. We'll have that as well. It's the 47 Morning Update, and it starts right now.
Story number one.
So just how big was the cover-up of Joe Biden's decline? And who is running the country? It is a question that many Americans have asked for quite some time. And it's a question that all of us deserve an answer to. Who is the actual president of the United States of America? Because clearly it was not Joe Biden. Well, we now have subpoenas that have gone out to answer that question. And James Comer is trying to get to the bottom of it in Congress. That brings in the former Biden doctor. President Joe Biden's former White House physician refused on Wednesday to answer questions as part of the House Oversight Committee's investigation into Biden's health in office. Dr. Kevin O'Connor invoked his rights under the Fifth Amendment during a closed-door interview with the House Oversight Committee, his attorney and lawmakers both confirming. The Republican-controlled committee subpoenaed Dr. O'Connor last month as part of a sweeping investigation into Biden's health and his mental fitness as president. Republican committee members claim some policies carried out during Biden's terms through the use of the White House autopen may be illegitimate. If it's proven the Democrat was mentally incapacitated for some of his term. Biden has strongly denied that he was not in the right state of mind at any point while in office, calling these claims, quote, ridiculous and false, which brings us to the lawyer. David, one of O'Connor's lawyers, said the doctor had, quote, no choice but to invoke his Fifth Amendment rights in testimony before the committee. The lawyer cited that both O'Connor's responsibilities to protect patient privacy as a doctor and the Justice Department's ongoing investigation into Biden's use of the autopen gave him no other choice. O'Connor did not invoke doctor-patient privilege, however, which would have allowed him to answer questions from the panel that were not covered by that privilege. Representative James Comer of Kentucky, the oversight chair, had this to say as they walked out of the closed-door meeting.
I can tell you exactly what happened. Dr. O'Connor pleaded the Fifth Amendment, and I'm going to read the first two questions that were asked. Were you ever told to lie about the president's health? He pleaded the Fifth Amendment. He would not answer that question. The second question, did you ever believe President Biden was unfit to execute his duties? Again, President Biden's White House physician pleaded the Fifth Amendment. This is unprecedented, and I think that this adds more fuel to the fire that there was a cover-up. I believe that this adds legitimacy to the Tapper book and the other books that are in the works that are about to come out that shows there was a lot of suspicious activity taking place in the White House with respect to the president's health. This is something I think every American is concerned about. I think every American wants to know the truth. We're going to continue. This investigation will move forward. We have several other witnesses that are going to come in for depositions and transcribed interviews. We will do everything in our ability to be transparent with the media, be transparent with the American people. This is very serious. And this was an opportunity for Dr. O'Connor to defend his reputation, to defend his work, and he chose to take the fifth. And I think that, that's something that every American is going to be concerned about.
Is some of that because of the doctor-patient confidentiality? I mean, there are questions about
HIPAA and Hippocratic Oath.
The first two questions pertained, again, were you ever told to lie about the president's health? And he pled the fifth.
But when
had nothing to do with.
But you know that when you have these depositions, people don't toggle back and forth. Either they invoke the fifth or they don't. Mm-hmm. So could that have been just giving himself a shield overall because they don't go back and forth?
Most people invoke the fifth when they have criminal liability, and that's what it would appear on the surface here. So we're not going to, we're going to continue to move forward. Obviously, I think his actions today speak loud and clear. Again, this was an opportunity to come clean. And, you can say, the president was in great health. This is just a conspiracy theory. He was fine. I don't know why they use the autopen 75% of the time when he was in the White House. This is what it's all about. It's about the autopen. There is serious concern, and the evidence mounts by the minute that Joe Biden had no idea what his name was being signed to. And we're talking about executive orders, and we are talking about pardons. So, what Dr. O'Connor did today only added fuel to the fire, that there was a cover-up and that, Joe Biden wasn't mentally fit to serve as President of the United States.
James Comer promising to get to the bottom of this, but when your own doctor won't even tell you the basics of what's happening and then claiming, well, I had no other choice. Comer also said this to Jesse Waters on Fox.
There was nothing asked in the beginning that would pertain to doctor-patient relationship. This was a question, were you ever told to falsify medical documents for the President of the United States? And he pled the fifth. And then we asked the question, did you ever doubt his mental capacity to fulfill the duties of the presidency? And again, he pled the fifth. The only thing he answered was his name.
The only thing he answered was his name. Yet again, another massive cover-up, this time including Joe Biden's doctor.
Now story number 2.
In a shocking story, Donald Trump apparently has been targeted by Iranian death fatwas as watchdog groups are now demanding immediate sanctions response because of the news. A news report by the United Against Nuclear Iran is urging the U.S. government to impose sanctions on senior Iranian clerics and regime-controlled institutions that have issued or promoted Islamic legal rulings, known as fatwas, calling for the torture and assassination of President Donald Trump, as well as other American citizens and the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, the fatwas invoke the Islamic charge, waging war against God, a term in Iran's penal code that mandates brutal punishments, including crucifixion and cross assumption under the regime's interpretation of Sharia law. Today, UANI is exposing the individuals and entities in Iran hiding behind religion to foment terrorism abroad. The threats against the President of the United States of America and other Americans are a federal crime. Each of these individuals and entities should be sanctioned, indicted, and banned from travel, along with their families, to the United States and its allies. That is what a joint statement by former Governor Jeb Bush, the UANI's chairman, and Ambassador Mark Wallace, its CEO, and former U.S. Ambassador to the UN for Management and Reform, said in a statement. The latest fatwa against another American citizen, Salman Rushdie, almost cost him his life, with him being stabbed by an Iranian regime sympathizer. It is time to ensure that those who threaten Americans face the full force of the law. Now, the UANI's new list identified not one, not two, not five, not 8, but 11 individuals and 2 regime-aligned entities that have not been sanctioned under U.S. counterterrorism laws. The organization is calling for all of them to be designated as specially designated global terrorists under Executive Order 13224, which is reserved for those engaged in or supporting terrorism. Among the top targets is the Ayatollah Nasser, a powerful cleric known as the Sultan of Sugar for his denomination of Iran's lucrative sugar trade. There's also calls for others in the government and there are many that are concerned about what this could mean for sleeper cells in the United States of America. Which brings me to part 2 of the story. Counterterrorism experts are now saying that Iran's sleeper cells in the U.S. might be hiding now in plain sight. Listen to this.
So where they could be located or where these sleeper cells may be is in plain sight. And that's the real terrifying part of this, is that putting people in place, as we've seen over the past 4 years, everyone's scrambling because certain amounts of people could come in here and get in here really relatively easy. They could even go to the border and say they seek asylum, and the Biden administration, instead of putting them into DHS housing or ICE housing and holding them there so they could have their first appearance to be vetted and whether or not they get asylum, that was deferred, and they were allowed passage into the United States. For some of these ICE agents are finding people who had deferment for 4 or more years. And Tom Homan talked about that, how they were putting them in hotels and deferring 7 to 9 years on some of these people. So even if we knew about them, when they get into the United States, they can just disappear. They are working off the books. They can get a fake ID. They can even get weapons with that fake ID in certain states. And when we say fake IDs, it has their picture, but another official driver's license number that nobody checks the details about. So the ability to get these people in here and put them into cells and instruct them on what they are to do if activated is very simple. But we've seen multiple attacks by people who didn't sneak in and people who were born here. The Sarnoff brothers, for instance, they didn't sneak into the United States, and they carried out a massive attack at the Boston Marathon. So this is the hard part about terrorism. It can happen anywhere at any time, and these individuals can, as long as they don't raise a ruckus, they may not even know what they're going to be called to do.
So here we are with another example of what wide open borders have done in this country to our national security. And the terrorism experts are warning us that it's time for us to find these illegal immigrants, specifically those that are staying here from Iran, and make sure that we keep this country safe, including Donald Trump.
Thank you for listening to the 47 Morning Update with Ben Ferguson. Please make sure you hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. And for more in-depth news, also subscribe to the Ben Ferguson Podcast, and we will see you back here tomorrow.
This is an iHeart podcast.